In March and April of 2025, I went to Cuba. Here I am, packed and ready to go. Though it's only been several years since I was last in Cuba, things have changed for the worse. The congestion in the streets is still the same. The horse-drawn taxis are still in abundance because of the lack of public transportation. Dump trucks are still used for public transportation, as well as converted commercial vehicles. The streets are still swept by guys like this one, carrying his broom. And people still line up at 5:30 in the morning to get a single roll for each member of the family. But now cars to rent are difficult to come by, even though they cost $100 a day. And gasoline, very hard to find. You can spend a tank of gas just finding another station with gas. I was on fumes when I met this guy who said he could show me where I could buy some on the black market. Tens of thousands of people across the country are strewn along the roads looking for a ride. This woman was Italian, but had been in Cuba for over 20 years. Her Spanish was not good, and she was hard to understand. She had strange spiritual beliefs and seemed quite odd. She was probably demon-possessed, per New Testament descriptions. In the town of Florida, Cuba, is a Christian family. The father had fed the family for 20 years by peddling people around town in a contraption he made from a bicycle. His son, though, found a recipe for candy that tastes a little like Reese's and had created a business that has made the family wealthy by Cuban standards. These are peanut and candy processing machines that he has created and made himself. These are his parents and grandparents. The grandfather has been a pastor in Cuba for 40 years. I wish I had time to relate some of the stories he's told me about being a pastor in Cuba since the revolution. Peanuts need to be dried. When you don't have dryers for them, just spread them on the highway. I had led this guy to the Lord on a previous trip. He is now the pastor's right-hand man. He is a pillar in the congregation, along with his now believing wife. We went to a neighboring town for a Bible conference of churches. The bus was full, and so was my car. Along the way, the bus caught fire. Multiple jugs of water finally extinguished it. My concern was not for the primitiveness of the facilities, but that it had no door. I ran into this couple, who are considered missionaries because they go to the very small and remote villages in the area of Media Luna. Of course, I left him some support as well as the backpack, which they desperately needed, as their only transportation is their two legs. They walk huge distances telling people about Jesus. People like this will be way ahead of me in the line getting into heaven. There were more people present than would fit inside. Here was another Cuban pastor and his wife. He also had incredible stories to tell of serving the Lord under a communist regime. At the very end of the island, near Haiti, is the poorest part of Cuba called Maicí, maybe my favorite part. The Baptist church is the social epicenter. It was here on a previous trip that I led this family to the Lord. He was a militante. That's a communist government official who is tasked with making sure no one in the village breaks any rules. Since I was preaching without a proper religious permit, he could have had me thrown out of the country, never to return. Instead, he accepted the Lord and is proven with his daughter, who was a school teacher, to be the examples of faithfulness and spiritual growth in the church. Every time I go there, he roasts an entire pig for me, something usually only done at Christmas due to the expense. The night before I left the village, I handed him what I thought was a $100 bill. I told him to share it with his daughter. It turns out it was only a Cuban 10 peso bill worth almost 3 cents. We had a good laugh about it the next day. I know that built-in natural lighting is desirable in kitchen remodelings. They've always had that in Cuba. How do these kitchens compare with yours? They established a little mission at the edge of town. Notice all the young people. One of the believers in this town called Puriales Arriba had his 2 horses stolen and butchered for meat. The perpetrators were caught. They were forced to reimburse the government for the value of the horses, not him. You see, everything belongs to the government in Cuba. There was no restitution for him, and so he could continue to support his family. I bought him this horse for $65. I thought that maybe Trump had invaded the island when I found myself caught up in some major military movements. At great risk, I was able to snap this photo. I missed the picture of the soldier on a bicycle with another soldier riding on the handlebars. The threat quickly passed. Well, not that quickly, since the burro was pretty slow and the guy on the bicycle couldn't steer straight. Here is a new church plant that they are proud of. This lady was demonstrating with this stick what she wanted to do to her eldest son who needs to get right with the Lord. This is her daughter who used to be a witch. She had one of these satanic temples, but she knocked it all down and burned all the nearly life-size idols. They hope to build a church on this land. They've already started gathering these primitive building materials. I rarely travel without a full car. These are primitive apartment complexes built by the Russians when they were there. You find them all over the island. I usually stay in the homes of people who are registered with the government to accept guests. They pay handsomely for the privilege and never charge more than $25 a night. I stayed in this couple's home. They were very interested in the gospel. When another Italian guest came in the room, he showed his disdain for the things of God, never looking up from his magazine and then walking out. These checkpoints are every few miles across the entire country. When I told one of my passengers that we didn't have these in the U.S., he was very perplexed. He asked with his forehead wrinkled, "How does the government keep control of everyone?" I said, "They don't." Then he was really confused. This guy talked like a Christian and was quite knowledgeable of spiritual things, but would absolutely not pray to accept the Lord. He gave me no explanation, even though I pushed him. When the girl in the middle was 8 years old, she went to a vacation Bible school in Bahia Honda. She invited her parents, Adrian and Yanuri, on the left for the final ceremony. They came, got saved, and became pillars in the church. They started their own ministries and supported the church like no one else. Yanuri's parents, also pictured here, got saved while in the U.S. for a short time. While I was in Bahia Honda, Adrian's dad needed a hernia operation. This is the hospital. To grease the wheels and make sure that everything went well, we had to buy a small pizza and a soda for the doctor. Welcome to Cuba. Very sadly, Adrian passed away of a heart attack last week. While we were at the hospital, this sweet Christian lady walked by. She had some amazing testimony that I don't remember right now. I normally don't go into Havana, but a pastor who was in a remote area that I had visited was moved to one of the biggest churches in Havana. I visited them and spoke in the church. People got saved. While in Havana, I stayed in some believers' home. The wife needed to go to the hospital for a checkup. I thought it not best for her to ride the back of her husband's motorcycle and instead took her in my car. In the airport, the only books available are all about the heroes of the revolution 70 years ago. Now, just a word about another trip. In June and July of 2025, I went to Mexico for the second time this year. My brother Tom was already down there with the old van he loves. We met up for visits to several villages together. His van is not four-wheel drive. Luckily, I was along to pull him out when he got stuck. In the town of Creo, where we have a Christian radio station, in this home of Adan and Luz, the couple on the right, we ran into Adan's parents and siblings that were visiting from the small village of Las Ranas that we also go to. The mother and sister had already accepted the Lord, but not the father. As we were leaving, I found myself sharing the gospel with the father. 20 minutes later, he accepted the Lord and seemed to be genuine in his decision to do so. Now the whole family are believers. In the town of La Caña, where Pam and I were headed when I lost her, most all the adults in the village have prayed with me to accept the Lord. This little girl can't walk without being stabilized by someone holding her hand. I left the money for a specialist that she needs to see. This is the woman who asked if I could interpret her dream. The short version of it was that a woman told her she needed to go up on a mountain. There she met a man who told her three things. 1, don't be afraid. 2, I am coming soon. And 3, be sure you are prepared. I told her that she wasn't the first to have such a dream. I had heard this before from another woman in a remote town in Mexico. The interpretation wasn't that difficult. This is the truck that rolled down the mountain. Someone has restored it and is using it. This woman heard about the radio stations I've put in and asked if I would install one in Urique. I did. It is being received with great enthusiasm in half a dozen towns that it reaches along this river. There are unpleasant moments on missionary trips sometimes. I picked up the guy on the left who was hitchhiking to his sister's house in a town several hours away. Though it was a hot summer day, I had to forego the air conditioner and roll the windows down. In a lifetime of poor and isolated places, you must sometimes endure unlovely odors, but never like this. I wouldn't be surprised if you got a whiff of the stench even from this picture. We talked about hygiene as well as the gospel. When we got to a sister's house, I was able to share the gospel with them as well. There is a church in their area and they promised to attend. We'll see.